Deep in the shadows, I know it's hard to put one foot in front of the other.
Hi everyone, welcome and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Cecilia, but I go by the name CeeChronicles across all my social media platforms. Here on this channel, guys, I post fragrance related content, and if you like that style of content and you're not yet subscribed, kindly do me the favor of clicking the subscribe button and joining the family. I'd very much appreciate it if you did that. And to those who are returning, thank you so much for the continued support. I have an FA Paris to review for you, a 2023 release that was released with a cluster of other fragrances, a lot of fragrances that fragrance world dropped last year, and this was part of them. Now, FA Paris, as far as I'm concerned, is a subsidiary of Fragrance World, but I believe they do the creme de la cremes. So the fragrance of the day is going to be Roses d'Emotions. This is a fragrance that Ajua came with here and asked me to review, so I could give my opinion. So this is the fragrance in question. I'm going to spray it on my arm here generously because it is a DNA that I love. There is a fragrance in my collection that kind of vibes in the same way, so I'm going to give you both options before the end of the video. The fragrance opens up, guys, with a fresh, spicy, aromatic rose because it's carrying with it a pink pepper. Notes listed, guys, are raspberry blossom, which is a fantasy note, Turkish rose, pink pepper, the papyrus, and white amber. So that is a note pyramid for this, which is a pyramid similar to that of Byredo's Rose of No Man's Land. The rose in here interprets as fresh, but just as you're enjoying that freshness of the rose, there is that papyrus note that comes into the mix to work with the rose, adding that aromatic tone as well as a woody backdrop, but not enough to call this or class it under woody fragrances. It still remains a fruity floral, but they are going to be wafts of a slight woodiness that you're going to get in this fragrance. For some, it's going to even come across as slightly leathery, but just gentle there, enough to tie things up, because it is quite on a fresh, rosy side. So the papyrus there is just in the background, but also adding a dry tone to this fragrance. The dry tone that this same papyrus is adding works perfectly, because that same rose ends up syncing with that raspberry blossom, a fruity fantasy note. And in this case, the raspberry blossom is so intense that if that papyrus didn't have that dry weight or add the dry weight to this fragrance, it could easily be classed as one of those, fruity jammy roses. To me, it doesn't cross over to jammy. It comes across as, fresh, spicy, aromatic, even woody rose there with an intense raspberry note there. In fact, I'm going to say with a photorealistic raspberry note. So they have captured that raspberry to be very intense, such that you're going to enjoy the raspberry note or the rose note, simultaneously, or some of you are going to find this fragrance splitting into more of a raspberry direction than it is a rose. But I get the rose all through. I'm just saying the raspberry, guys, is so intense that this can easily be classed under a quintessential fruity sense, if you will, in as much as it does carry, that rose with it, right? I do remember that I did say, guys, I was going to tell you what it kind of vibes like. And as much as it has, that label that is going around as the Rose of No Man's Land, there is also an unmistakable familiarity that I get in this fragrance that I get in there. Okay, I'm showing you Gucci Guilty Absolute Perfume, regardless of this one being a Rose of No Man's Land smell alike, is the fact that I do get a versatility in Roses d'Emotions by FA Paris that I do get in here. It kind of is themed in the same way. It's not exactly 100, but it's themed in the same way, and it kind of is in the same fragrance family to an extent that some of you will find it very close to this than it is to Rose of No Man's Land. Now, the difference is there that I'm getting, where the Rose of No Man's Land is quite, kind of strays a little bit from this, is in its suffocating nature. If you have used that fragrance, you will know that it's quite polarizing. It can be a little bit stuffy there to the nose because of the heightened papyrus. Now, in this, I feel that papyrus is toned down. In fact, it amps up the intensity of the fruitiness which you get from that that raspberry blossom fantasy note, so that is intensified, and then the rose is not exactly intensified. The rose remains fresh, but it is a fusion of both, and the highlighting of both that then makes this fragrance a quintessential fruity floral without it being like really stuffy there. In terms of who can wear this, I am going to put it at 80% feminine. It does have that feminine DNA, guys, this one, but there is that 20% which I've left there for some males who may like these kind of themed fragrances, because there is a touch of a woodiness coming from the same piperus, although not intense, but it is there, that touch of a woodiness. So men can find themselves wearing this if they really do like it, if they can look past the pink bottle, of course. And I think the thing I can say about this is FA Paris released, I think, 2 of them at the same time. The other one is brown. I don't have it in my collection, but I have been privy to smell it. It is very spicy, very, very masculine, very woody there. It is in the same packaging, but it's not a continuation of this. Weather-wise, this is going to be okay for all seasons, although it does come across as a scent that is probably going to brighten up there in the warm weather. So you would get more wear from this if you wore it in the heat than you would in a cold weather. However, in both seasons, it's likely to have this lingering effect. Linger in the sense that sometimes when you feel you can't smell it anymore, it just comes back to life. So it does have that lingering effect, something that can continue all through without any disturbance if you wear it in warmer weather. So because of that, I'm not going to put a duration as to this is a fragrance you need to reapply after 6 hours or so. It's just going to be nose specific, because as I was testing it, I found myself at some points not being able to smell it, and at some points I'll just make like a slight shift like this, and then I get wafts of it. So definitely a fragrance that seems to rise from time to time, depending on whether you're catching wafts of the wind or the heat has just hit your clothing and stuff like that. Also is perfect for the skin, this one. I love how it's just a skin magnet. You get more wear from it if you actually spray it directly on your skin than if you do on your clothing. It does seem as though it has that decent lasting power on the skin, because I remember when I wore it one day testing it, I woke up the following morning, I could still get wafts of it, though very faint, but I could still get wafts of this fragrance. So yeah, that is what I can say. The only thing again is we go back to that fragrance world thing that I always talk about, where they must improve on their distribution, because often fragrance world fragrances are the sort that I would love to get my hands on, but I often have you guys asking, where do we get this, where do we get this? Right now I'm going to throw a website just off my head, and this is not a sponsored video. Frag Bar, I've noticed they do stock from time to time various fragrances, so you can keep an eye on Frag Bar, and possibly you might be able to pick some of these. As for the other websites that pop up, I'm not going to speak about the credibility of them because I've never bought anything from them. However, I'm not dismissing them. I'm only saying if you're going to purchase off some of the websites there, the independent websites, then you just have to do your due diligence. But if Fragrance World could fix that, then it will be an absolute pleasure, because a lot of people want their fragrances more so that they are on the roll. So it's a shame that they're making the new releases but they're not improving the distribution line. CeeChronicles is my name. Thank you so much for joining me today. Let's meet in the comment section where we'll obviously discuss more about fragrances. Let me know your thoughts, guys, on this fragrance, on Rose of No Man's Land if you've used it, and on whether you get wafts of Gucci Guilty Absolute Perfume from either. If you get any remnants of this fragrance, let me know. I would very much love to know your thoughts on that. Remember to turn on post notifications on this channel. That way you get to be notified anytime I upload a video. Like and share this one, and remember that smelling good is a form of good manners. Cheers.